Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public forum. It's a sign-up public forum. We have a couple people. For those that don't know our rules are that you're allowed to speak for 2 minutes, and you don't get a response here. The first person is David Kane.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, President, and members of the council. More than 2 years ago, I was a victim of a crime. I'm reporting it to the council because I can't report it to the police department because I believe that the police department officers committed this crime. I was minding my own business using public access computers at the Watertown Library when some officers accosted me and took from me 2 flash drives, similar to the one I'm holding in my hand, more than 2 years ago. More than 1 year ago, some more officers accosted me and took from me an electronic tablet and a phone, the one that came in this box, same make and model as this phone right here. This book has a copy of the U.S. Constitution. The Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says that no person can be deprived of his life, his liberty, or his property without due process of law. The process that is implied by that amendment happens in a courtroom. No process has ever been done in a U.S. or a state courtroom. Therefore, the property that was taken from me was done in violation of the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I would like that property returned to me. I have not yet spoken to a lawyer about a lawsuit, but as an American citizen, I have that right. One more time, please do what you can to return my property to me. 2 electronic flash drives, a phone, and an electronic tablet. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Coyne?
I just signed it.
Okay. Anyone else that didn't sign up that would like to speak? Seeing none, I close the public forum and move on to the examination of minutes. Can I get a motion on the minutes of October 22nd?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Under item 8B on top of page 5, there's a gap where some text is missing. It should say, the sentence should read, Councilor Piccirilli moved to, and then there's a blank. It should say, authorize the transfer of funds as noted.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item is President's Report, and I don't have anything this evening. We have a lot of other things going on. Item 8 is unfinished business from prior meetings, and its consideration and action on a proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2020 budget. At the previous meeting, we tabled the action item on this because we did not have certified free cash or whatever. Yeah, Mr. Manager.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. Just by way of background, the President was pointing that out. Just back on the October 8th Town Council meeting, we brought forward a proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2020 budget. That was the first reading. On October 22nd, there was a public hearing on the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2020 budget. Subsequent to Mr. Tracy providing the background to the proposed amendment, there was a request to table the action on the proposed amendment given the fact that the Department of Revenue hadn't certified the town's fiscal year 2020 new growth. Thus, on Thursday, I did forward and confirm to you that the Department of Revenue has certified the town's fiscal year 2020 new growth at $4,919,268 That dollar amount, Mr. President, members of the council, is $62,615 higher than the amount that was reflected on the original proposed budget amendment that, again, first reading October 8, public hearing October 22nd. So we forwarded a revised proposed amendment for the fiscal year 2020 budget. That proposed budget amendment would be the revenue and expenditures would each increase by $2,153,809, and therefore the revised fiscal year 2020 revenue and expenditures would be $149,911,809. Again, Mr. President, as you indicated at the beginning, this was done in accordance with the Home Rule Charter. There was a public first reading and then a public hearing on October 22. So tonight's is the unfinished business to basically move forward adopting the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2020 budget. Mr. President.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on the proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2020 budget?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the budget amendment of $2,153,809 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 9 is public hearings, and the first item is public hearing and vote on a grant of location from RCN.
Mr. President, I believe that has to be a roll call vote. It's a budget amendment.
Yes.
Sorry. Can we get a roll call on the previous action item?
Council Feltner,
Yes.
Council Canales,
Yes.
Council Colombo,
Yes.
Council Picciarelli,
Yes.
Council Woodland,
Yes.
Council Bays,
Yes.
Council Donato,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
President Sidaris.
Yes, thank you, sorry. Public hearing and vote on a grant of location from RCN Telecom Services, Inc., to lay, maintain, and operate underground conduits with cables to be placed therein under the surface of the public way for 175 North Beacon Street from existing 2 4-inch conduits and 2 quad conduits blocked on North Beacon Street Place, 2 4-inch PVC communication conduit, 56 feet plus or minus, of which 16 feet is in the public way, in southerly direction to the building located at 175 North Beacon Street. Is there someone here from RCN that would like to make their presentation, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Ken Bates. I'm a senior engineer for RCN. What we're looking to do is pick up some conduits which were dead-ended back when we first started to build out the town of Watertown. We had a granted location, master granted location for all conduits. They were never utilized because they were dead-ended. We are now looking to utilize those conduits as well as build the new 2 4-inch conduits, which will go approximately 156 feet, or 56 feet, I'm sorry, 56 feet, 16 feet, which will be in the public right-of-way. The rest would be on the private property of 175 North Beacon. This is being done in order to provide services to that property as they are looking for a redundant path from RCN in order to ensure that they keep up their services.
Thank you. Since this is a public hearing, I now open it up and see if there's any member of the public that wishes to be heard on this petition. Seeing none, I close the public hearing and ask for a motion from the council.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the petition for RCN for the underground conduits at 175 North Beacon Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
The next item on the agenda is informational presentations, and the first item is an informational presentation on the Community Health Needs Assessment Report, and this is going to be presented by Larry Ramden, the Director of Public Health, and I just want to state that I would like to keep the questions to a minimum because we will be asking for this to be referred to the Committee on Human Services for further discussion, and anything that would have to come back to the council could come back at that time. Mr. Ramden, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council, Mr. Town Manager. The Watertown Health Department conducted its first community needs assessment. We have provided copies to council as well as it is available on the Health Department's website. The needs assessment was commissioned by my predecessor, Deborah Rosati, the former Director of Public Health. The needs assessment project was led by Stephanie Venizelos, the Community Wellness Program Manager for the Health Department. It was started by one of our interns, Memsima Bentasi Enshel. I may have mangled her name. I hope she forgives me, who was interning with us at the time. It was completed by a contractor, Petra Czech, and we had GIS and charting support from Gideon Schreiber, Senior Planner with the Department of Community Development and Planning. All of this was accomplished with a grant from the Mount Auburn Hospital. The data sources we relied on were two sources: a compilation of descriptive quantitative data from state, local, state, and national sources. We also conducted 22 in-depth interviews with local stakeholders representing agencies, organizations, and institutions in Watertown with a health-related program. The issues of greatest concern to those stakeholders were mental health, substance abuse, affordable housing, stresses of meeting basic needs, equitable access to services, inclusive of affordable and accessible services, spaces, and events for youth in middle and high school, as well as the aging and elderly population. These were discussed as having particular importance. The assessment, again, was the first of its kind. The report is not comprehensive by any means, but gives a broad overview to Watertown residents of the current state of local health concerns and experiences with the social determinants of health. We did not include any environmental health concerns with the needs assessment. Follow-up activities will include a broad cross-section of our stakeholder groups to ensure that the diversity of Watertown community is reflected, including LGBT adults and youth, immigrants and non-English speakers, people living with disabilities, people of all faiths, ethnic and racial backgrounds, and people in recovery. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any
Apologies, I seem to have some gremlin here that it was all set earlier when I had set it up.
We often have some technological difficulties here. Are there any questions before I ask for a referral? Councilor Feltner.
Thank you. I know that this was by your predecessor, but do you know why the environmental health concerns were not taken into account as part of the needs assessment?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion?
Mr. President, I make a motion to refer to the Community Health Needs Assessment Report to the Human Services Committee for further discussion and recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Ramden.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to further discussion.
Oh, he's done, we're done with it? Okay, yeah.
Next item on the agenda is the informational presentation on the possibility of a strategic partnership between Buckingham Brown and Nichols School and the town of Watertown. And the presenter this evening will be Dr. Jennifer Price, who's the head of Buckingham Brown and Nichols, but I'll turn it over to the manager first.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Again, it's a very, very exciting agenda item tonight. As you just mentioned, Mr. President, that I would provide some background to before formally introducing Dr. Price, who's the head of Buckingham Brown Nichols School. Just by way of background, back on July 2nd, there was an article in the Boston Globe that indicated that Mount Auburn Cemetery was selling 6 acres of their Grove Street property. Further to that, wanted to read into the record a couple of the goals of the town. Goal 1 of the town's open space and recreation plan reads as follows: improve the amount accessibility, and condition of Watertown's recreational resources. Additionally, the Honorable Town Council's fiscal year 2020 budget policy guideline 2I reads in part as follows. Develop a budgetary plan to meet the identified need for acquisition of land for open space and/or recreation use. Given all the above, and as Town Council is aware, the town is working on the possibility of a strategic partnership with Buckingham Brown and Nichols School, or BB&N, regarding the potential joint use of the Mount Auburn Cemetery's Grove Street property. We are very, very excited about BB&N's potential purchase of this property and the impact this property could have on the residents of Watertown. Specifically, the town's plan is to establish a joint use agreement through a memorandum of understanding that will allow our residents to use BB&N's proposed fields in the evenings, on weekends, and throughout much of the summer. In return, BB&N would have access to the town's Philipello Park fields right after school each day for their athletic teams. This is a very exciting opportunity for a partnership with BB&N in the town of Watertown that will increase open space for recreation and exercise. We believe this will be an excellent public-private partnership that would benefit both the residents of Watertown and the BB&N community. For additional background purposes, I had provided a link to the Town Council agenda tonight that included the following: BB&N's proposed rendering for the Grove Street property, an October 17th letter of support to the trustees of Mount Auburn Cemetery signed by the Town Council President and myself, and then lastly, a correspondence that went out last Friday to the BB&N community from Dr. Jennifer Price, along with Mr. Chuck Breezes, who's the chair of BB&N's Board of Trustees, outlining some of the exciting opportunities here. Given all of the above, and in conversation with the Town Council President in respect to request this informational presentation tonight, the presentation will be on the possibility of a strategic partnership between Buckingham Brown and Nichols School and the town of Watertown. The presentation will be given by Dr. Jennifer Price, who's the head of Buckingham Brown and Nichols School. So at this point, Mr. President, members of the council, I'd like to formally introduce Dr. Jennifer Price, the head of Buckingham Brown and Nichols. I'm very, very pleased to have her here with us tonight. Mr. President, Dr. Price.
Thank you. Maybe the technology will work, maybe the technology will not work. I'm an educator, I can go either way. So I'm just gonna tell you how that's gonna work. So hi, my name is Jennifer Price. There we go, look at that, how exciting is that? And I just want to talk a little bit about who I am before I talk about this presentation. So I have spent 20 years of my life in the public schools. I was the principal of Newton North High School for almost a decade, and then I was the superintendent of school up in North Andover before I came to BB&N. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is when BB&N, a school like BB&N, decides to hire a public school educator, they're doing that because they feel deeply about creating public and private partnerships. I can tell you, out of the independent schools that I've met, I am really one of the few people who has made this leap, and BB&N as a school has made this leap. So I wanted to share that with you because I'm very excited about this partnership because of the public-private nature of it. I got into this work really to try to create better opportunities for all kids, and I'm really excited that this might be able to do that. So just a little bit about our school, Buckingham Brown and Nichols. I know it sounds like a law firm. It was two schools, the Brown and Nichols School and the Buckingham School. Brown and Nichols was a boys' school, Buckingham was a girls' school, and they merged in 1974. We currently have 1,000 students in grades pre-K through 12. Our students come from 90 different communities, and 24% of them receive some sort of financial assistance to come to our school. Just in terms of Watertown, we have 32 faculty and staff who live here. That represents about 16% of our full-time employees. We have 25 students from Watertown. That's actually a 28% increase over the last 2 years. Many of your Watertown kids participated in our summer camp. I do hope you know that we have extended some access for our summer camp program, financial access for the Watertown students to be part of that. We have many of our students are volunteering at several Watertown Watertown-based nonprofits. I will say, yesterday, my football team got into a jam around field space, and you guys were nice enough to give us an opportunity to play football on your field yesterday. We have really been working in partnership since my arrival, and Town Manager Driscoll will be able to talk about that a little bit. I've learned a lot about about him, and of course you will hear the devil is in the details from me later. So, our campus, I just wanted to explain a little bit about our campus because it's actually really relevant to why this is important to us. So all the places highlighted are actually property of Buckingham, Brown, and Nichols, or we rent. So you will see we have 3 separate campuses. You may only know the upper school campus, which is the one along the river, but we have a lower school campus, which is closer to Harvard Square, and a small middle school campus, which is also close to our lower school campus. We do own a piece of property on Fresh Pond called Buckingham Field, and then we also own the former AMVETS on Grove Street, where we currently park our buses. And we are learning that is one expensive place to park our buses. And then we rent a piece of property on Mount Auburn Cemetery. On Mount Auburn Street. Belmont Street, 46 Belmont Street, and we have a 10-year lease for that. I also want to introduce to you. This is our CFO, COO, Tara Goldman, Dr. Tara Goldman over there, who's been working very closely with us on this deal. I thought it was really important for you to see our campus and how expansive we are. So next on that one. So why is this important to us? So one of our strategic priorities, and one of the reasons they hired me, was to really figure out how we fit into our community and how we fit into our communities and how we can be good partners within our community. The next bullet was written by Dr. Goldman, so I'll let you read that about it. It was no coincidence. But an opportunity to share facilities for the school for only a limited time. So the thing I would say is we really feel strongly that it seems crazy to have an asset that people can use that sits there when we're not there. And we're only in school 165 days a year. So the opportunity to use facilities and to share facilities seems really reasonable to us. I hate that we have fields that aren't being used at all times. We do rent our fields to Lesley College, for instance, in Cambridge, but the idea that our fields could be used and fields could be used all the time is really exciting for us. And then why also is it important to us, just very strategically for us, we did a campus master plan and we found a number of things about our campus. We need more space to support our student-teacher connections. Specifically, when we look at our competitor schools, we have 25% less space than our peers. You can imagine, we're in Cambridge and Watertown, we have a lot less space. Specifically, our athletic space is suboptimal. So this fall, for instance, we had 10 different teams at a co-ed school. We had 10 different high school teams. We only have 3 fields. So that means many of our kids aren't even starting practice till 5:15 or 5:15 or 5:30, not getting home or off the field till 7. Some of our kids commute almost an hour. So you're talking about kids not even getting home till 8 o'clock, then settling down to what is known as a pretty rigorous amount of homework. So it really is not optimal. And parking is a challenge for us. We're currently really struggling with parking. So what are we proposing is pretty simple. 2 fields, 80 parking spots, a small field house, not above 2 stories, where we could have an opportunity to have 2 fields, and that would be completely adjacent to Philopello Park. So it actually would give us access through a joint use agreement to actually have 4 fields, to have all of our students practicing in more optimal conditions and situations. And it's pretty simple what we're proposing. I know that this isn't a very highly technical drawing, but really it's not that highly technical what we're proposing. It's 2 fields and a field house. Proposed joint use. So the idea is for us to really think about what would this mean, and again, the devil is in the details, but each party would maintain their own facility. So you all would maintain Philopello Park, we would maintain our facility. Watertown would have use of BB&N's fields on evenings, on Saturdays, on Sundays. You'd have scheduling rights in the summer. You may need, we understand, we really wanted to call this out, especially as a former superintendent. Congratulations on making it through MSBA, by the way. That is an incredible big deal, having tried for many years in North Andover. We do understand that you may need to use Philopello during construction. We see this as a long-term partnership. If we need to if we both need to work on areas that are short-term or issues that are short-term, we're totally on board with that. I feel like we've developed a very strong working relationship with Mr. Driscoll and the rest of the folks in Watertown. We would use Philippello Fields right after school, a time that is not necessarily heavily used by the recreation in Watertown. And then we would need full-day access during our preseason, which is basically 2 weeks in August and over our March break, so that our kids could practice during the day. Okay. And our timeline, we just wanted to talk to you about the timeline. As I think many of you know, this is being sold by, obviously, Mount Auburn Cemetery. The first round of bids were due October 17th. We have already submitted a bid. I will tell you that we are working really hard, and I have one of my trustees here. We are working hard to be competitive. In the letter that I wrote to my community, we are not going to be able to be competitive with biotech equity capital, venture capital. It's just not going to happen. These numbers are getting large. We're doing our very best, but we are working really hard to create a very competitive bid. Final bids are due November 26th, hence why we're here. We think this this strategic partnership is critical to us making a serious bid on this property. It really is why we're doing it. It's very important to us. We're hoping that we will be able to be a finalist on December 4th, and the cemetery trustees are meeting on December 12th to make a decision. So this is actually, within a month, we'll know if we are fortunate enough to be the chosen bidder for this property. And I think that's all I have. And I really am very, very interested in your thoughts, in your questions, in your concerns. And I really appreciate the fact that we've been able to get here, because I think this would be a very exciting public-private partnership and demonstrates what I hope is really a win-win situation. And hopefully the cemetery will see it as a win-win-win.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming, and thank you for working with the town manager and staff on this proposal. I typically I wait till the end, but I think this is important enough. I'd like to speak first tonight. I think this is a huge opportunity for the town of Watertown to enter into this public-private partnership, which it points to the needs that we've been pointing to for years in our budget priorities and other areas where we're looking for open space and recreation and chances. We always hear about the children in the community not having places to practice, to play. Our schools, some of our kids don't get home till 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So,
crazy.
again, it's a big problem. I know this is a very competitive process, and I know that sometimes we as public officials are looking to get the most that we can get for tax dollars for our community. This is a case where this is an area that I don't think I would ever support massive developments of 5 stories or 4 stories or what I'm hearing. It's not appropriate. I think that this is a very, very appropriate approach to that plot of land at this point, and I think that, I would really be upfront in saying that I will be the first one standing in front of any board or commission here in Watertown saying no to a very large project for that area. I think that's important. I think this is the best use, and I think we as a community should support this. Colleagues, Councilor Cornelis.
Thank you. Can't begin to tell you how excited I am about this proposal. Many of you know I am the East End councilor, and very often I'm the lone dissenting vote against many of the projects that come before this council and come before the boards. And you'll hear me 10 minutes of midnight before the ZBA or the planning board talking fervently against a proposal and how it would impact our East End neighborhoods, and obviously our community at large, but the East End specific to my constituents. When I first heard about this, and it was from Mr. Magoon, because I'm always asking him anything else that I should know about in the East End, and he said, well, there might be something coming along, and I thought, this is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I can't find any other words for it. About 12 years ago, there was a proposal for a housing development, and the neighborhood rallied against it. And it was a very challenging time for us, and finally the developer pulled out. And I think that this would be not only wonderful for the community at large, but for our residents in the East End, and for anybody who travels the area. The word has slowly started to trickle out amongst residents about this proposal, and already the emails are coming in asking for support and asking me to support it. No doubt, I am supporting this 100%. So thank you, and I hope my colleagues will do likewise, and thank you for the wonderful presentation.
I mean, having spent a lot of time in that space in the East End, Counselor, you know, it also has, you know, it will help the traffic situation. I mean, there's a lot that I think it could do for that space, and 20 acres between the two of open space, I think is really exciting for everyone.
It's a win-win situation, and I was quoted during an executive session, it's not always about the money. And in this instance, I think we need to do the right thing, as does the cemetery. The cemetery, I think, needs to come forward and realize what's going to be best for the neighborhood that they abut and for the cemetery itself. And I don't think it would be appropriate to have a massive development immediately abutting the cemetery either. Thank you.
Councilor Donato.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having just concluded the election season here in Watertown, I think everybody can agree two of the things we heard over and over again is we really need to try to slow the rate of development in Watertown, and we need to do something about traffic in town. I can't think of a worse location in town for another large development. Traffic on Grove Street in the morning is terrible. I think this proposed use is, I mean, win-win, I think, is really underselling what this could do for the town of Watertown, for our residents, for the East End, and for BB&N. I really can't describe how excited I am just looking at this rendering of what this could potentially look like. There's fewer and fewer parcels of land that are available in town for open and green space. This has to be, I would imagine, the largest undeveloped piece of property in Watertown, if not the largest, one of the largest. And, you know, to echo what the council president and Councilor Cunello said, you know, certain times, you know, it's not all about the money, and I think this is a great example because I think whatever the town might be able to take in tax revenue will be far exceeded by all of the really the great times I think that our residents and BB&N students will have to be able to enjoy, you know, the 20 acres of open space, contiguous open space. So I am fully behind this. I think it's great for the town, and I too would oppose any large-scale development in this area. And if I would encourage people in town that if this is something that excites you, you know, maybe you take the time to reach out to the cemetery to let them know that you think that this is what's in the town's best interest and ultimately what's in the cemetery's best interest. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Feltner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your presentation. I am also very excited about this great location, the synergy with Filipello, and as Councilor Donato and others have said for years, field space that we also need. There's very little land left, as you know. And I agree that it would further the quiet enjoyment as well and benefit the cemetery and help further their objectives educationally, open space, right off the Charles River, bird sanctuaries, et cetera, along with the field use. So I appreciate you bringing this proposal forward, and I fully support it. Thank you.
Is anyone else that wishes to speak? Councilor Woodland.
I hate repeating my colleagues, so I just want to say very quickly, this is a no-brainer to support this project. It's exactly what the community wants. It's exactly what the council has advocated for this type of parcel in this part of town for this exact type of use. So I want to, again, I don't like echoing my colleagues, but reach out to us and to interested parties if you feel as passionately as it's clear that this council feels about this issue, because I think if there was some other larger development, large-scale project moving here, that you'd have 9 folks up here advocating against it. This is exactly what we want to see. So thank you for bringing it forward and for your efforts in partnering with the town.
Councilor Picciarelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, again, I fully support my colleagues' comments. I do want to say, just for the public to know, that the council president and the town manager sent a letter of support for this proposal to the trustees of Mount Auburn Cemetery on October 17th. As you heard, the decision to move forward with this project is not going to be made by this council. It's going to be made by the trustees of the cemetery who are trying to sell the land. So I would like to see the administration sort of put together. I know people in the public want to perhaps send letters of support or petitions of support for this, and I think that really needs to go to the trustees to say the public supports this strategic partnership between the town of Watertown and Buckingham Brown Nichols Schools. And so I would look forward to the administration sort of maybe put something out so that maybe through the rec department or other channels so that the public can voice their support for this. And I think that would be very helpful for that difficult meeting that the trustees are going to have to vote on which proposal to accept. I think this is a tremendous proposal for the community of Watertown as well as for Buckingham Brown Nichols. Thank you.
Councilor Bays.
Well, I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said, so I'm just going to say ditto.
Is there anyone else before I recognize the town manager? Mr. Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Again, this informational presentations, many times we have everyone repeating and talking and rather very, very hopeful to what is beyond an excellent public-private partnership. I think Dr. Price alluded to that tonight, what I'm hearing, it's a win-win, and what we really need is the win to Mount Auburn Cemetery. And that one of the things that we, when we talk about the open space and the recreation use, it's beyond a very exciting opportunity. Several councilors talked about the fact we have to have our residents let Mount Auburn Cemetery know. We have the young man sitting in the front row, does a wonderful job on the Watertown News, putting a lot of the comments the council hears, so that people in that letter the letter of support that was mentioned earlier, the one thing that we were saying to Mount Auburn Cemetery, who's not here tonight, which is, and certainly they'll ultimately be making the decision, but besides being a very exciting opportunity for the partnership with BB&N and the town of Watertown, and I want to thank Dr. Price for talking about having us engaged and having us working in a collaborative fashion that will increase open space for recreation and exercise, the partnership with BB&N and the town of Watertown. But one of the things we cited, Mr. Sedaris and I, in the last paragraph was that we, based on policy guidance from council, are very supportive of BB&N's bid for this property. And this sentence is the proposed use would be compatible with your historic cemetery. I think that's kind of, when you're looking at that and talking, it couldn't be a better use regarding what Dr. Price mentioned, traffic, and a lot of the other comments the council made. So I would certainly hope we'll look to get something out. It's a tight time frame, but we really want to have this be a lot of people smiling tonight, but it's a win, which is the town of Watertown and BB&N, but we need Mount Auburn Cemetery to join and make it a win-win-win. So I really hope that everyone lets the council, it's not the council making the decision, but lets the Mount Auburn Cemetery Board of Trustees know or supporting us to kind of continue this partnership so that we, the exact title of the presentation tonight was the possibility of a strategic partnership between BB&N and the town. I'd like to get rid of the word "the possibility," and make it a strategic partnership. And so, in my final comment, I had, brought this water glass, which is something I can do, but
It's
I
under
would.
$49.99.
Thank you.
But I was told that the presenter tonight was going to make the presentation with Watertown's colors, so black and red, and so I think there's a lot of win-win there. So she told me she was going to do that, and she did. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. In closing, the town of Watertown it's very rare that we enter into potentially enter into strategic partnerships with a public-private institution or whatever. We don't do a whole lot of this. And for the community tonight to hear it from us and from all my colleagues that this is a really, really exciting thing, I think it's important that Mount Auburn Cemetery understands that we as a community don't do this very often. And this is very important to us, that they look at us look at your proposal as something that is going to be accepted by a lot of people in the community. So thank you for coming tonight and presenting this.
Thank you. And I will say, your town manager has incredible vision to even talk to us in the first place. And I just really, really appreciate all the support that you and Mr. Magoon have, because this really is a partnership, and you guys have been equal, if not stronger partners in the process, so thank you.
Thank you.
1 second, Councilor Falcoff.
Yeah, I know that you and the manager, Mr. President, sent a letter already to the cemetery, but is there an additional letter that would make sense to come from the council about how enthusiastic we are?
I guess we could consider that as well.
I would
Mr.
support that
President,
idea.
Just to Council Falcoff's query, the one thing that we would like to talk in the many requests is to determine next steps to kind of a follow-up to here, and I think there's a sense of what town council would like to have. So I work based on Council Falcoff's and some of the other requests to let the cemetery know, and how could we get this out. So we would certainly, with the indulgence of town council, will work on to best, kind of get the message out, what happened here tonight, which is all good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is motions, orders, and resolutions, and 11A is a first reading on a proposed order allocating the property tax levy among or between property classes for fiscal year 2020. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you indicated tonight, it's just the first reading, but just as we've done in the past, we'll provide a little background to it. Tonight's first reading on a proposed order allocating the property tax levy among or between classes for fiscal year 2020. Just by way of background, since fiscal year 2002, some 19 years ago, the Honorable Town Council has voted a shift of 175% from residential to commercial, industrial, and personal property classes, which results in a lower tax rate for the residential class. That will be considered and recommended by the Board of Assessors 2 weeks tonight when the tax classification hearing comes up. Additionally, what will be discussed by Town Council 2 weeks from tonight is that a year ago in the fiscal year 2019 tax classification, the Honorable Town Council voted a residential exemption of 23%. The residential exemption is a provision that allows a shift of the tax burden within the residential class by granting a discount to owner-occupied property. So, Mr. President, what was linked tonight was a 14-page PowerPoint presentation put together by Mr. Earl Smith, the Chairman of the Board of Assessors. He'll be here to make that presentation at the November 26th Town Council meeting. Mr. President.
Thank you. Next item is 11B, which is a first reading on a proposed order setting optional tax exemptions for fiscal year 2020.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, correspondence was forwarded to you from Mr. Smith. What the Town Council has historically done is to vote exemptions 100% maximum allowed increase over statutory levels. Again, we'll make a presentation, the administration will make a presentation 2 weeks from tonight, which has been the Town Council's long considered practice of voting 100% maximum allowable over statutory levels. The public hearing on this matter will be at the November 26th Town Council meeting.
Thank you. 11C is a resolution authorizing a transfer of $19,139 from the fiscal year 2020 Town Council Reserve to the Town Auditor prior year full salaries account and to the fiscal year 2020 Town Auditor full-time salaries account to reflect the adopted ordinance amending the fiscal year 2019 compensation of the Town Auditor. Mr. Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just again, as you know, the Town Council adopted the ordinance 2019-83, amending the fiscal year 2019 compensation of the Town Auditor at the October 22nd Town Council meeting. The amended compensation needs to be adjusted in the fiscal year 2020 budget. The proposed transfer dollar amount tonight is $19,139. It would be from fiscal year 2020 Town Council Reserve to the fiscal year 20 Town Auditor full-time salaries, $7,682, and Town Auditor prior year full-time salaries, $11,457. Respectfully ask your favorable consideration of the proposed transfer, which is in accordance with the ordinance that was adopted at the October 22nd Town Council meeting, Mr. President.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on the transfer?
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the transfer of $19,139.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Canales?
Yes.
Counsel Palumbo?
Yes.
Counsel Picciarelli?
Yes.
Counsel Woodland?
Yes.
Counsel Bays?
Yes.
Counsel Donato?
Yes.
Counsel Falco?
Yes.
Counsel Feltner?
Yes.
President Zadoris?
Yes, thank you. Item number 12 is committee reports, and 12A is a Committee on Economic Development and Planning report regarding marijuana local option tax and e-scooters. Councilor Woodland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee convened on Wednesday, September 25, 2019, at 5 p.m. in the Lewis P. Andrews Upper Conference Room. President were myself, Chair, Lisa Felton, Vice Chair, and Vincent Picciarelli, Secretary. Staff President were Steve Magoon, Assistant Town Manager, Director of Community Development and Planning, Laura Wiener, Senior Transportation Planner. Also present were Councilors Caroline Bays, Anthony Donato, and Anthony Palumbo. The purpose of the meeting was 1, consideration of a marijuana local option tax, and 2, consideration of a regional electric scooter policy. The committee discussed a local option tax for a recreational marijuana sales tax, Mass General Law, Chapter 64N, Section 3, which can be found in Attachment A, and we noted that medical marijuana sales are exempt from this tax. The action item, Council Picciarelli made a motion, seconded by Council Feltner, to recommend the Town Council adopt Chapter 64N, Section 3 for a 3% marijuana sales tax, and that was voted 3-0. Ms. Wiener noted the memo of August 1st seeking policy guidance from the Council on how to proceed. As Attachment B, she noted the following on electric scooter policy. 1, micromobility is a growing part of the urban transportation infrastructure. 2, electric scooters are currently illegal in Massachusetts, but the legislature is working on a fix. 3, new legislation is expected to pass in the spring of 2020. 4, Brookline currently has 400 electric scooters with an average of 4 trips per scooter per day. 5, the MAPC is working on a regional strategy for electric scooters. 6, as a side note, Lime Bike notified the town that they will not be renewing their contract next year. Action item, Council Picciarelli made a motion, seconded by Council Feltner, to recommend the Town Council ask the administration to continue discussions with MAPC and surrounding communities on electric scooters and to come back to this committee after legislation is passed in order to decide how best to proceed. That was voted 3-0. The meeting adjourned at 5:32 p.m. Report prepared by Council Picciarelli.
Can I get a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Action item A is going to be tabled this evening because in conversations that I had with the town attorney, we want to put it in a resolution form so it's consistent. So we'll be taking that up at our next council meeting. Can I get a motion on action item number 2?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. 12B is the Committee on Economic Development and Planning report regarding the MassDOT Workforce Transportation Grant. Councilor Woodland.
Okay. The committee convened on Tuesday, October 29, 2019, at 6:15 p.m. in the Philip Payne Lower Hearing Room. President myself, Chair, Councilor Lisa Feltner, Vice Chair, Councilor Vincent Picciarelli, Secretary, Staff President Laura Wiener, Senior Transportation Planner. Also present were Councilor Anthony Donato and members of the public Attachment A is a sign-in sheet. The purpose of the meeting was review and consideration of Transportation Network Company funds. In the meeting on August 14, 2019, the committee agreed to wait until DCDP applied for the MassDOT Workforce Transportation Grant to determine the amount of matching funds needed. Ms. Weiner distributed a memo explaining that Watertown applied for 2 grants requiring 2019 TNC funds of $23,088 for a public shuttle service on Pleasant Street and $20,000 for 5 blue bike docking stations. This can be found in Attachment B. Key discussion points. 1, the $46,912 in TNC funds appropriated last year to the shuttle pilot have not yet been spent or encumbered and are available for use on the Pleasant Street shuttle. 2, the initial rollout of the Watertown Connector Arsenal Street shuttle will be available to TMA member rides only and not to the general public, as there will be no public funds provided. Number 3, if the grant application for the Pleasant Street shuttle is not successful, the $70,000, those 2 numbers combined, will still be available for another shuttle bus pilot. 4, $13,488 of the 2019 TNC funds will remain unappropriated for future use. 5, the $20,000 for the blue bikes should be contingent on receiving the grant, and if not successful, will remain unappropriated and available for future use. Councilor Donato stated his support for residents to be able to ride the Arsenal Street shuttle in the future with a public funding contribution. Susan Flint, speaking on behalf of Watertown for All Ages, asked the committee to consider grants in future years for transportation programs for seniors. Council Picciarelli made a motion, seconded by Councilor Feltner, to recommend the town appropriate $56,576 in 2019 Transportation Network Company funds as follows: $23,088 to partially fund the shuttle bus pilot program, $20,000 for blue bike matching funds if the grant is successfully awarded, otherwise the funds will remain unappropriated, and $13,488 will remain unappropriated for any allowable future use. That motion passed unanimously, 3-0. Meeting adjourned at 6:54 p.m. Report prepared by Councilor Picciarelli.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Can I get a motion on the action item?
Mr. President, make a motion to approve the council appropriate $56,576 in 2019 Transportation Network Company funds as follows: $23,088 to partially fund the shuttle bus program, $20,000 for blue bike matching funds if the grant is successfully awarded, otherwise those funds would remain unappropriated, and $13,488 will remain unappropriated for any allowable future use.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Palumbo.
Yeah, when I saw the part about the fact that the initial rollout of the Watertown Connector would not be used by the public, this is quite disturbing. I don't know, we have made this pretty clear to most of the meetings that we've had on this, that we wanted the public to be part of the use of the shuttle. Throughout most of the this past campaign, I've heard people speak about this continually, the need for it, and the importance of having the public participate in it. I was particularly concerned by the fact that we are a member of the Watertown, the TMA. Watertown is part of it. We do make a contribution to the TMA. I know the TMA is not the shuttle, but it is part of the shuttle. It's part of the TMA. So I find this really disturbing, and I'm not sure I can vote in favor of putting $23,088 for partial funding of the shuttle unless there is some commitment to have residents use the shuttle through this rollout of the Watertown Connector.
Mr. Magoon?
Mr. President, if I could clarify on that point, the proposed matching funds in this program would be for the grant for Pleasant Street shuttle, which would be open to the public. The discussion of the shuttle that would not be open to the public initially is Arsenal Corridor, and that's something we're still working on, but that's not, would not have any public dollars going to that at this point.
Councilor Woodland.
Yeah, so just to clarify for the folks at home, the monies that we are voting on now are for the Pleasant Street shuttle, which will be open to the public, and it's also contingent upon receiving a grant from the state so that we can operate that in a way that we think will be most, give the most impact to alleviating traffic in that area and the successful implementation, reaching critical mass of folks during peak hours. So that's what is on for tonight, as well as the Blue Bike.
Are there any other questions or comments? Councilor Donato.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to echo, I share some of the concerns that Council Palumba has, and I think, we made some recommendations for the 2020 budget policy guidelines that I'm hopeful will help address this going forward so that, maybe funds will be available to allow residents to take part in the Watertown the Connector program. Thank you.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. 12C is the Committee on Economic Development and Planning report regarding the confirmation of the reappointment of Janet Buck and Gary Shaw to the Planning Board. Councilor Woodland.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee convened on Tuesday, October 22, 2019 at 6:15 p.m. in the Town Council office. President myself, Chair, Lisa Felton, Vice Chair, and Vincent Petrilli, Secretary. The purpose of the meeting was to interview Janet Buck, an architect who is seeking reappointment to the Planning Board, having served since 2015. We view their experience on the board as positive, with the members being very considerate in their approach. She has witnessed many positive changes in Watertown and likes the direction the town is going, but respects the concerns residents have about traffic issues. Action item, Councilor Felton made a motion, seconded by Councilor Petrilli, to recommend the Town Council confirm Janet Buck for reappointment to the Planning Board for a term to expire February 15, 2022. That was voted 3-0. Meeting adjourned at 6:45 p.m. The committee convened again on Tuesday, October 29, 2019 at 5:45 p.m. in the Town Council office. President myself, Chair, Lisa Felton, Vice Chair, and Vincent Petrilli, Secretary. The purpose of the meeting was to interview Gary Shaw, an architect who is seeking reappointment to the Planning Board, having served since 2016. While he was eager to join the board to help shape decisions that directly affect residents, the process has been frustrating at times. He would like to see the staff take a more active role with zoning changes and believes that visual annotation of the zoning ordinance would help both the public and developers better understand what is and isn't allowed under zoning. Action item, Councilor Petrilli made a motion, seconded by Councilor Feltner, to recommend the Town Council confirm Gary Shaw for reappointment to the Planning Board for a term to expire February 15, 2022. That was voted 3-0. The meeting adjourned at 6:15 p.m. The report respectfully prepared by Councilor Petrilli, and I thank him for all the reports that he prepared this evening.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Can I get a motion to confirm Janet Buck for reappointment to the Planning Board for a term to expire February 15, 2022?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Can I get a motion to confirm Gary Shaw for reappointment to the Planning Board for a term to expire February 15, 2022?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. 12D is the Committee on Media and Public Outreach report regarding the presentation of the results of the kitchen table conversations. Councilor Palumba.
Thank you. The committee met on October 3rd at 5:15 to discuss the community engagement project and review the preliminary results of the kitchen table conversations. Attendees included myself, Councilor Lisa Feltner, Vice Chair, Councilor Bayes, Secretary Ora Gortsky, Larry Ratskin, Bill Metz, and Stephanie Vanzelos, and Nancy Hammond from Watertown Community Conversations. The meeting was called to order at 5:20. The town councilors and facilitators from WCC shared some of what we learned from the kitchen table conversations. Everyone present commented on how valuable the community connection was to all the attendees. We had 18 community kitchen table conversations with a total of 134 participants. 5 of our town councilors made at least one. Nancy Hammond said she has a lot of valuable data to compile. The committee discussed the draft agenda for October 23rd meeting. Councilor Feltner asked that, in addition to sharing understandings of the kitchen table conversations, we include an appreciation of the process. We felt that we should give people a sense of the breadth of the outcomes, gather feedback from participants, and give them a shared understanding of what the next steps are in this process. We would also like to ensure that there is engagement from the public at that meeting, which would be held on October 23rd. Communication and outreach, we did will be a model on getting out the news about the October 23rd event by WCCC. WCC is looking for creative ways to reach out to people. We've discussed a number of options, including emailing a flyer, asking the town manager to send it out in a news flash. Just as a comment, I appreciate the town manager's willingness to do that. Thank you. Inviting town employees, sending out a press notice to the tab in Watertown News, posting the event on sandwich boards and on Town Hall, and asking the press to do a story about the event. We will invite all the participants to come and ask that they forward the invite to all their friends and neighbors. Councilor Feltner will reach out to the PTO. Councilor Palumbo will send thank you notes to the hosts with an invitation to the meeting. The committee discussed the program and logistics for the 23rd. Nancy Hammett will present the results via PowerPoint. She noted there was valuable information from the KTCs, though not all of it pertaining to the charge of the committee. While she will record all the data, her PowerPoint presentation will focus on the important topics which directly relate to the committee's focus on communication and public outreach. Following Ms. Hammett's presentation, the attendee, with the assistance of the attendees, I should say, with the assistance of the visitor, will discuss and rank the recommendations. It was clear that the committee would not be able to conclude its discussion of the program and logistics at this meeting and would need to continue the discussion at the October 10th meeting. The meeting adjourned at 6:45. The minutes were prepared by Councilor Bays. The committee met again on October 10th at 5:30 to continue the discussion of the community engagement project and review the results of the kitchen table conversations, attending with myself, Councilor Feltner, Vice Chair, Councilor Bay's Secretary, and from the Watertown Community Conversations members, Ori Gartsky, Larry Raskin, and Nancy Hammett. The meeting was called to order at 5:30. The committee continued the discussion of the October 3rd meeting, at which the final results of the kitchen table conversations will be presented. We confirmed the logistics of the meeting and made changes to the proposed agenda. We agreed that it was important to emphasize in the outreach for the meeting. The attendees will have the opportunity to participate in a roundtable conversation at the meeting to discuss and to rank the key findings from the KTC. We reviewed Nancy Hammett's final compilation of the data and determined what information will be presented for discussion through handouts and what information will be presented on posters. All the results will be available for those who want hard copies. The committee discussed the follow-up to the meeting. The committee will make sure that all the data is available to the town on the town council's website and will reconvene to discuss possible action items to bring to the full town council. In addition, the participants in the KTCs will be asked if they'd like to be informed about future work of the committee and possible participation in enacting some of the ideas. WCC recommended there be an evaluation of the project. Council Palumbo adjourned the meeting at 6:45. The minutes were prepared by Councilor Bays, and I'd like to thank Councilor Bays for both these minutes and the minutes of the earlier meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next item is new business. Any new business to come before the council?
Okay,
I was going to say it under announcements.
okay.
No.
Communications from the town manager. First is a request for confirmation of appointments and reappointments to the Cable Access Corporation Board of Directors.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Pursuant to the provisions of the Watertown Home Rule Charter, the Town Council Ordinance 2007-46, along with Article 4 of Section 2 of the Watertown Cable Access Corporation policies, bringing forward tonight 2 appointments and 6 reappointments to the Cable Access Corporation Board of Directors. They are as follows. The 2 appointments would be Ms. Lori McManus from 17 Channing Road. That would be at a term to September 15, 2021. Mr. Nino's Hannah, 38 Chapman Street, to a term to September 15, 2022. The reappointments would be as follows. Mr. Michael Shepard, 108 Summer Street. His term would go to September 15, 2020. Robert Caprillion, 320 Mount Auburn Street, Apartment 1. Again, the term to September 15, 2020. The headmaster, Dr. Shirley Lundberg, would be one of the school members. That term would go to September 15, 2020. Mr. George Skuse, another school member, would go to September 15, 2021. Mr. Christopher McKenzie, 136 Cypress Street, term to September 15, 2021. And John M. Marazian, 731 Main Street, to a term September 15, 2022. Mr. President, members of the council, under the council rules, these appointments and reappointments would be referred to the Committee on Education and School System Matters for a report back to the full town council.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. 14B is also a request for confirmation of appointment and reappointments to the Environment and Energy Efficiency Committee. Mr. Manager.
Yeah, thank you again, Mr. President, members of the council. Pursuant to the provisions of the Home Rule Charter and the Town Council Ordinance 2007-46, bringing forward tonight one appointment and 5 reappointments to the Environment and Energy Efficiency Committee. The appointment would be as follows: Mr. Ari Stern from 16 Hunt Street, number 2, a term November 15, 2022. And the 5 reappointments would be as follows: Mr. Edward Lewis, the Energy Project Manager, term November 15, 2021. Jean Trebek, 471K Arsenal Street, term November 15, 2021. Emma Clement, 16 Whites Ave, number 46, term to November 15, 2021. And then Meredith Fields, 185 Palfrey Street, to a term November 15, 2022. And Andrew Arazian, 12 Bates Road, November 15, 2022. Again, Mr. President, members of council, the 1 reappointment and the 5 reappointments are under the council rules are referred to the Committee on Public Works for their review and report back to the full council.
Thank you. Any other communications from the manager?
Not this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you. Request for information. Any requests for information? Councilor Falcoff.
Thank you. I was surprised to get the news that we have applied to have an exemption from 40B based on acreage or square footage, and it seemed like an important policy decision, and I was surprised the council hadn't been informed before the letter went out, and so I'd like to know why, and I'd like to know if the housing partnership was a part of the conversation.
Thank you. Any other requests for information? Seeing none, announcements. Any announcements? Councilor Picciarelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Saturday, November 23rd, from 9 to 3, the Boy Scouts from Troop 30 and the Cub Scouts from Pack 30 will be holding a Scouting for Food event at the Stop and Shop on Watertown Street. Scouting for Food is the event where older Scouts and Cub Scouts work together to stock the shelves of the Watertown Food Pantry. Scouts have developed a shopping list filled with the most popular items among food pantry users, but any gift is welcome. And if you show up, they'll Stop and Shop between 9 and 3. They'll give you the list, and you can use that to purchase some items. Stop and Shop customers have in the past filled more than 150 grocery bags at the Scouting event, getting staples like rice and peanut butter, and also getting personal items like shampoo that federal grants don't pay for. This event helps bridge a gap between government funds and a need in our community. Everyone's welcome to come by and help out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Palumbo.
I have 2 announcements. One is that on November 22nd, the Community Foundation is holding a town-wide trivia night, an educational fundraiser that will take place between 7 and 10 p.m. at the Sons of Italy Hall at 520 Pleasant Street. I know that Councilor President Sedaris has having a team of the counselors there to participate in trivia. But again, I hope everybody can come support the Community Foundation. They do great work for us here in Watertown, and that is November 22nd from 7 to 10 p.m. The second announcement is, I'm very happy to share this with you. This is an announcement regarding a Narcan training. As you may know, Narcan is the nasal spray that is used to reverse an overdose. Narcan was used over just recently, from January to November, we've had in Watertown, unfortunately, we've had 4 fatal overdoses. At the same time, we've had a total of 53 overdoses, 4 of which are fatal, but because of the use of Narcan by the police department, the fire department, bystanders, and staff, that number of fatalities was drastically lower. And to that, I'd like to announce that on Thursday, November 21st, the day before the trivia night, there will be a Narcan training at the Belmont Watertown United Methodist Church at 7 p.m. at 80 Mount Auburn Street is the church. And you'll be seeing members of the fire department and others, and members from the health department there on this training on Narcan. So please, if you don't know how to use the spray, it would be wise to learn. And again, that's Thursday, November 21st at 7 p.m. If I may make just a quick announcement, this past Sunday on November 3rd, we had a forum on composting over at the library where about 50 folks participated, and we had a nice panel discussion. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jerry Me, who took the time on a Sunday to represent the department at the forum, and he was a member of the panel. So thank you, Mr. Me.
Any other announcements? Councilor Bays and then Councilor Donato.
So mine's not exactly an announcement, but I just wanted to give another shout out to DPW. I was out earlier today in front of or right here beside the town hall, and my door knocked my hand and my keys fell into the grate. So the very full, wet grate. And just so happened, as I was finding out from Toyota that the keys were going to cost over $500 to replace, DPW saw me, and I asked them if there was any chance I could get my keys out. And Obi, or Kevin O'Brien, said, yeah, I think I can help you. And so he spent quite a bit of time this afternoon helping me get my keys out of the grate. So. And there they are. So I just want to thank him. And I know I can't give a tip or give any money, but I was just wondering from the lawyer if I can give cookies to DPW. So I will be bringing cookies. Thank you so much.
Councilor Donato.
I just want to put on everybody's radar that the Watertown tree lighting is going to take place on December 6th on the Delta, starting around 5:15 or so. So I'm sure other people will remind the community as we get closer, but just wanted to get that out there. Thank you.
Any other announcements? I do have a couple. First, tomorrow night, there is a meeting of the Joint Human Services Rules and Ordinance Committee to continue discussion on the noise ordinance. Is it tomorrow night or next?
I heard just recently that there was a
It's
request.
a planning board.
That they want to change that.
Okay, well, whenever it is, there's been a request by a counselor that I didn't put on the agenda this evening. I'll put it on the next agenda for discussion for an additional referral that early on was, we were under the assumption that because it wasn't in the original referral, Councilor Falcoff has an additional request, and I'll let her speak to the request, and we will put it on the agenda to see if it will be referred.
Okay.
Councilor Falcoff.
Thank you. It's been a little frustrating that for some reason leaf blowers aren't part of noise. They have to be considered separately. So I'd like to request the council to add leaf blowers to the current referral so that the councilor can discuss it the committee can discuss it all together.
Thank you. I have another announcement, which is on November 19th, tomorrow, next Tuesday, at 6:30 p.m., we will be having our very first community forum about the renovation or expansion or new high school. The owner's project management team, which is Compass, will be there. The architect, which is AI3, which is also doing the elementary schools, will be there. The superintendent of schools will be there. Some members of the school building committee will be there. And it's the very beginning of a process of several community meetings. We're going to do some things about where we were, where we are, where we're going. It's, for information, it's very preliminary. It's the first one. We'd like people to come out as much as possible, and we'll be having several more. So that's November 19th at 6:30. Are there any other announcements? Public forum. Any member of the public? Yes.
Hello again. I've spoken with the council before on this, but it's been over a year since I've been in this room, so this is just a reminder. For the benefit of those of us who have some hearing loss, please use your microphones. I've already spoken with a 20-year educator who didn't use her own. Please, even though it's a hidden medical malady, if people don't have a hearing aid, some people just don't. They think that everybody has perfect hearing. So please use your microphone.
Thank you. Good reminder. Anyone else wish to be heard in the public? Before we adjourn, I just want to, first of all, congratulate everyone at the table and the newest councilor-elect, Councilor Gannon, for their election last week. And I also want to congratulate Councilor Falcoff, because she doesn't have to do this anymore after January. So, but I also want to thank her for helping us out. So congratulations to all. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.